Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from fantasyfootballscout.co.uk. My name is David and today, of course, is the FPL double game week 7 deadline. We've got 59 minutes until that deadline passes, and so for that time, we are going to hang out. We're going to try and chill out as best we can, talk about what we're going to do with our teams and get ready for that deadline to pass. Now, it has been something of a frantic week. At the beginning of the week, thought I'm going to roll my transfer and got to Wednesday and Thursday. 3 yellow flags, 1 orange flag. It's now 3 yellow flags and 1 red flag for my team. And I know that a lot of other people are in a similar boat. So I'm fully anticipating all the questions this morning, largely relating to what to do around those flags and around those injuries. So as ever, get your questions in the chat. If you want a guaranteed answer, Super Chat is the way to go. And I'll do my best to get to all the others. I'm expecting a lot of questions, so I can't promise I'm going to get to them all today. But it's nice to hang out with you guys. Hello to Steve, to Henning, Bumbling Expat, Danish, and FPL Marshall, already in the chat. As ever, let me know where you're tuning in from. Those Australians and Canadians out there, I know that you have to be in and around this deadline stream at really unsociable hours for you. So yeah, do let me know what time of the day it is for you and what you're getting up to on this day. You might be sorting your team and going to bed, for example. And to be fair, you might even be doing that in the UK because it has been so stressful this week. So yeah, let us know what to do. And Brian in the chat says, I don't know what to do. Well, welcome to FPL in double game week 7, because even with all those injuries, we had double game week players as well to talk about, and some people have really just had to kind of leave them by the wayside because of all those injuries. Bumbling Expat is tuning in from Kuala Lumpur. Wow, long way to come. Danish, it's 2:33 p.m. in India. That's, I'm hoping, not too bad a time for you, unless, of course, you're usually busy around that time. Well, I guess you are. There's an FPL deadline we got to sort. Of course, if you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button as well. Subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification as ever so you don't miss a single thing. We've got loads of great content coming up this weekend and into next week. A couple of other things before we really get into the nitty-gritty of this deadline stream. First things first, as ever, I'm obviously going to sit here and talk up the benefits of the Fantasy Football Scout members area. Going to show you some numbers in a little while that have helped fuel some of my decisions this week. And so if you want access to that in your own time, get your membership sorted. You can still save 30% on this pre-season prices. We also have a message from our sponsor. This video is sponsored by Betway, the principal betting partners of West Ham and Brighton. On Friday, they announced the heroes of the weekend. You bet £10 on the player market's top scorer of those heroes, and they'll credit a £1 free bet for every point up to £20. Betway are also running giveaways, including shirts and tickets for West Ham and Brighton. We know not everyone gambles, which is something we take seriously, which is why on our website we have a filter you can turn on, which allows you to opt out of gambling ads. For those who do enjoy it, do so responsibly and safely. There's more info about Betway in the description. You have to be over 18. And of course, we encourage everybody to gamble responsibly and to begambleaware.org. When the fun stops, stop. But one thing that never stops in FPL is drama. And already I can see lots of people asking about Saka, about Arsenal. And that is where we're going to start with to begin with. We're going to have a look at the most recent pieces of information that we've had. And I already have to say our thoughts are with you, Danish, because it sounds like you've already sold Saka, and there has been some development. Now, selling Saka might not necessarily prove to be the worst decision, but for sure, it is a frustrating one. It's information in terms of the timing of when it came out. Nice to see everybody letting us know where they're coming from. Sashin is here from the USA, who says, please tell me about Son and Botman. I think we can talk about Son and Botman, yeah, for sure. Henning's coming in from Norway. It's 5 a.m. for Brian. FPL Marshall's in Northern Ireland. Derek's joining us from Qatar. Steve, as ever, of course, from Australia. 7 p.m. there. Do I think Alvarez will start after playing in the Carabao Cup? Yeah, I think so. I think. We're gonna. As those of you who join us quite regularly for these will know, I like to always start with a little bit of a team news light roundup, because Saturday mornings, especially, everyone is largely sort of settled on their transfers, usually. I know not everybody is today, but sometimes that late team news can make a big difference. So talking about that is quite useful. And I should just say, as ever, you guys are my eyes and ears for any early pieces of information that emerge from Villa Park, where Aston Villa are hosting Brighton today. That's the early kickoff. So let me know if you see anything on social media. Put the link in the chat and we can all have a look at that together. And if there's anything else that comes out about any of the other games, again, let me know and we can have a talk about that. So, yeah, let's start off with Arsenal then. We of course, had Saka yellow flagged and unable to train ahead of Game Week 7. He wasn't involved in the EFL Cup in midweek, which doesn't necessarily have to be a warning sign because there was a lot of rotation in a lot of teams. But the big one was that we got told by Arteta on Friday that Saka had not trained ahead of Game Week 7. The quote was, he, and this was actually in specific reference to Rice, has not trained yet. We have another session in an hour or two. More news today. Martinelli hasn't trained. Trossard, same situation. Saka, same situation. And so, unfortunately, that put us in a position. I was coming very, very close to selling Saka. I haven't done it yet. I may still well do it. I've got 53 minutes until that deadline passes, and I'm not completely decided on my transfers yet. In many ways, I'm using this segment to help solidify some of my thoughts on Saka. And yeah, if you've got questions on Saka, I would say that this is the Saka section. So yeah, later on, if I get questions about Saka, I'm just going to tell people to come back to this bit, I think, so that we can talk about a few other things, because there's obviously so much to get through. So Saka, I was thinking, right, if he's not trained this week, it does probably count against most players, but maybe it doesn't have to count against Saka. We knew that there was going to be another training session yesterday. I haven't actually, I should apologise, haven't confirmed this yet, but I'm fairly confident that the information we got yesterday was that Saka didn't train yesterday either. Or, well, we assume he didn't because we didn't lay eyes on him in any of the training pictures. The training pictures did go out. He wasn't in them. Doesn't necessarily mean he didn't train. Could be, without wanting to be too conspiracy theorist about this, it's possible maybe they just tried to omit pictures where Saka was in them if they want to try and create a sense of doubt around Saka. But Bumbling Expat makes a very good point, which I've also been sort of quite aware of this week, is that training is overrated when you're as good as Saka. And I mean, it's not quite as simple as that. The view has been that he, in the past, has perhaps not trained as much as he wants to before a game, but it doesn't seem to matter. He has played through pain before, and so the fact that he's not trained doesn't necessarily have to count against him. And so everyone's thoughts were, is he going to travel? Because if we get confirmation that he hasn't travelled to Bournemouth, then we can feel a lot more confident in selling him. And of course, if you're wondering what to do about him, that Game Week 8 match with Manchester City is very much sort of like consolidating people's feeling that maybe they should sell him. If he's not going to play this week and he's got to play City next week, that's 2 weeks where you could maybe have a Son instead, or perhaps maybe you could shift to a West Ham or a Newcastle midfielder because they've got good fixtures coming up as well. You could try that. So there's definitely alternative options. And yesterday I was fairly sure I was going to go with Saka to Gordon. But, and I missed this last night because I was just out at a social event, so I didn't actually catch this until this morning with Saka. Thankfully enough, FPL Tommy Gun, who I believe is an Arsenal fan who has also travelled to Bournemouth, has quite literally gone out on the ground and has managed to get footage of the Arsenal players arriving at what looks like, I guess, a hotel or somewhere in Bournemouth ready for this game. And what we've seen is we saw players getting off the bus. We saw Saka among them. And I should just say, we're sort of, I'm forgetting here about Saliba because there's people worried about him as well. And to some extent, I suppose people probably were hoping that Rice had probably travelled as well because he is quite an important part of that team and he's a very, very good midfielder and he sort of holds the team together. And yeah, we've got confirmation that Saliba, Rice and Saka have all travelled. On Martinelli and Trossard, not actually so sure, but this is really, really useful. And big thanks goes out to Tommy Gun because wow. Saka is so widely owned, and I think that this will be of enormous benefit to people if you've not already seen it. This footage, go and check him out on Twitter. Both of these clips are videos as well of last night, and we're fairly confident that it's this season rather than last season. So yeah, that's the current situation, is that he has travelled. Now, does that fully answer your question? Maybe not. But I'm sort of now coming around to the view that if he is there, then he's probably in the matchday squad. And if he's in the matchday squad, he's either going to play, I'm hoping, no minutes or 60, 70 plus is my hope. And so I'm not I'm much less concerned now. And bearing in mind I've got lots and lots of other problems to deal with in my team, I'm thinking that I'm probably going to hold Saka now, because if Saka plays against Bournemouth, I think it's going to go very well for Saka. I will just pick out some numbers here. We'll go to our to the members area. In the last 4 matches, the 3 teams that are the worst for minutes per expected goals conceded are in reverse order. So the worst is Sheffield United, then it's West Ham, and then it's Bournemouth. So Bournemouth in the last 4 matches have had the 3rd worst defence in effect. So if Saka does get some minutes against that, bearing in mind how well he's been performing so far this season, I'm fairly confident that he's going to get something, and it feels hard to sell him ahead of that. And then maybe I've got some doubts with this Man City game, but if I've perhaps maybe got a few points out of Saka versus Bournemouth, I'm probably less concerned. And to be honest, I wanted to roll my transfer at the beginning of this week because we've got some big fixture swings coming up. Saka's in so many teams. I think those that hold him, we're all in the same very big boat, and maybe there's opportunities in West Ham and Newcastle alternatives. But if that backfires, you're probably in, I don't want to say big trouble, but Saka's ownership. Should we just double check what it is? I don't actually know what it is off the top of my head, but my guess is it's a lot, even after this particular injury. Yeah, 59.3% of teams have Bukayo Saka in their team. So it's very. I think now that he's travelled, it becomes more of a risky move to sell him for this one. So that's what I'm doing with my team. Every team is different. I will appreciate every team is dependent. If I was sat here without a plethora of flags, would I be more inclined to sell him in that context? Potentially. But it is what it is. I've got flags on Chilwell, Botman and Maddison, and I now know Saka has at the very least travelled with the Arsenal squad for this Bournemouth game. So it very much helps in that regard on that particular decision. Now, I've also included on the screen here a quote from Iraola, the Bournemouth manager. He is down to make a late call on Dominic Solanke ahead of Gameweek 7, and he will try and train today. Tyler Adams made his debut midweek and will be assessed ahead of the weekend. We got Kelly, Scott, Meffam, Fredericks and Marcondes all still out as well. And so Solanke missing, especially missing Solanke, I think is bad for Bournemouth. I think it's good for Arsenal. If Saliba is in and around that matchday squad and you've got him, I would probably start him for this, because it does seem as if Bournemouth are going to be short of some firepower. And before we move on to anybody else, I mean, a lot of people obviously are wondering about predicted lineups and things like that. You will, of course, know if you're regular to watching these that whenever anyone asks me who I think is going to start for any particular team, my answer is always, I have no idea. I don't get paid for that specifically, but what I do get paid for is to show you what the people who do get paid for predicting teams have predicted this week in the editorial department. It's their job to sort that out, because they go to the press conferences and they analyse all the matches and things like that. So this is the predicted lineup for the Arsenal team for Game Week 7, according to Neil and the rest of the guys in the editorial. And you guys will know by now that they are, of course, very, very accurate a lot of the time. And when you compare the Fantasy Football Scout team predictions to everybody else in the business every season, we always come out on top with the highest guess percentage, correct guessing percentage. So this is what the prediction is for this game week. Raya in goal, Zinchenko, Gabriel, Saliba and White as the back 4, Havertz, Rice, Ødegaard as the midfield 3, and then Nelson, Jesus and Saka on the right hand side. And very much the fact that Saka, Rice and Saliba have all been seen in Bournemouth is a big part of why they've gone in there. So that's the situation with Saka. I think I think he's unlikely to 1-point cameo people today. And if he doesn't start, as long as you've got yourself a healthy bench, I'm hoping you should be okay. So let's move on to everybody else now. I'm not going to go through all of the team news here. I'm just going to go through the sort of headlines and the big ones. So, of course, confirmation now that Ben Chilwell has a hamstring injury, and it's not good news. He very much is ruled out of Game Week 7. So, anyone like me who last week thought, let's give him one more chance to come back into the team. And, of course, he played midweek. And was very, very close to making out unscathed, and could have been a really nice differential option in a game away at Fulham, which we're expecting to be low scoring. But yeah, unfortunately, he is now red flagged. So anyone who held on to him, I do think it is more essential that you sell Chilwell if you can versus a Saka, because I know there's people out there with both, because we know Saka is there. We know that Chilwell won't be. And, there's some good potential alternatives in the Newcastle defence. Alternatively, if you kind of quite like this fixture, Chelsea's defence has been very, very good. So you could do Chilwell to Colwill, and I actually don't think that's the worst thing in the world. Let's have a look at Crystal Palace. I know there's not like massive interest in Crystal Palace, especially when they're away at United. But if you've got Sam Johnston and you're looking for some save points, Dean Henderson is probably going to be out for a little while because his most recent scan on his thigh injury did not look like good news. Edouard is also out, so that probably, that does diminish their goal threat. We've got Lerma, Tompkins, Ahamada, Franca, and Elise all unavailable. And we've got Real de Walde, who is now unavailable as of that League Cup game. So there's a lot of Crystal Palace absentees for this week in particular. And so if you do have your United guys, if you've still got Rashford, which I honestly don't think that's a bad player to have for this game week, I do think that he could get some joy. United have a few sort of injury issues of their own, but Fernandes has started to capitalise now. I do think that this is a positive result incoming for Man United. Now, Man City, I haven't actually seen too many questions about Man City this morning. But it's still just no, we did have that one about Alvarez, didn't we? Still worth talking about this because there's not that much that's different with the Man City team news. So Bernardo Silva, John Stones, and De Bruyne are all still out. Rodri also not available because he's now serving the second game of a 3-match ban for him being sent off last time out. And so what that means is that the chances of Alvarez not starting this one are very, very slim. It's possible that maybe City score 3 or 4 goals in the first sort of hour and he comes off on the 59th minute, but fingers crossed, based on the way Alvarez has played so far, he's going to get involved enough in those goals that it doesn't matter if he doesn't get that second appearance point if he gets a goal and assist. That's kind of like what I'm expecting today. I know they've got European football coming up, but we've seen Pep do that before, just absolutely blitz the first half so he can get the key men off. So that's kind of what I'm thinking there. Let's go to Tottenham now before we come to Newcastle because they're the big one. So with Tottenham, I've seen a couple of questions about Maddison. So Paul Crane has said Saka, Maddison injured, and there was a couple of other guys as well. With these guys, I'm fairly confident that they're going to play. Postecoglou said Son and Maddison did train today. They said they will be assessed ahead of the game against Liverpool in the sense that they've trained, and quite often is the case with players when they've had an injury. They train, everything seems okay, but then something may flare up. I mean, if you play 5-a-side football or 7-a-side football, sometimes you wake up the next morning. If you play on Tuesday night like I do, you wake up on Wednesday morning, you feel a little bit sort of, I feel a little bit stiff in my ankle this morning. Sometimes it takes a little while for the body to react to that additional exertion, and if you're exerting yourself after having had some kind of knock, sometimes that can exacerbate a knock to the extent that you don't play. So that is currently what we are looking at with Spurs, is that we're fairly confident Son and Maddison are going to play. It's quite an important game. We know that Son played through a lot of pain last year. The view on the Maddison injury was it wasn't that serious anyway. And so then when that's the context in which this quote makes me not all that worried about Maddison and about Son. But yes, I promised that we would talk about Newcastle because it's just a ridiculous number of flags there. Got people in the chat asking, I think it was TR Slews, I think that's how you say that. Do I start Burn? Well, I'm actually considering buying Burn, so I think you're going to be okay. Now, a couple of things here. Let's first off start with the injury news. Now, we had honestly a bit of a laundry list this week of the players who had knocks. Botman, Burn, Dubravka, Bruno Guimaraes, Isak, Wilson, and there was one more, I think. Probably a really obvious one. I think so. There are flags come off somebody, but I suppose there's Harvey Barnes, isn't there? Because we know he's going to be out for a while. And what we got on Friday was that Wilson's hamstring tightness was very minor. He said that he expected Burn and Bruno Guimaraes to be fine. And so let's do some definitions of what flags go on for. Now, Flags go on players in FPL when there is doubt. And even the thing is, in many ways, I think there should probably be a flag between 75 and 100%, like a 90%, because if a player needs assessment, right, before we know they can play, so like Maddison and Son, that's good enough for a 75%, and it's not bad enough for a 50%. Alternatively, if there's any doubt at all, FPL are obliged to indicate that with their flag. To be honest, without wanting to knock FPL specifically, one of the reasons why Fantasy Football Scout's way of sort of doing team news is quite useful is that yellow flags is a very binary way of indicating someone's current status, whereas with the team news page, you can sort of delve a little bit deeper. And as I said, it's possible that maybe we should have a 90% flag to differentiate between players who need assessment to confirm if they're going to play versus Burn and Bruno should be fine to play. And the reason why that expresses doubt is this. Think of it like this. If someone asks you if 2 + 2 = 4, you say, yes, it equals 4. You don't say 2 + 2 should equal 4, because that implies that there's some kind of thing that needs to give one way or the other before you come to a conclusion. And so, unfortunately, it just means that if a manager says he should be fine, yellow flag straight away. What that means in reality is that you can probably be fairly confident that they're going to play. And so, Burn should be fine means that he's probably going to play. Also worth saying that there has been something out there. And sorry, I should just clarify. I'm fairly confident that with Botman, it's kind of the same thing. The view on him is that what was wrong with him was minor and he should be fine. But in terms of the Newcastle team, there has been sort of ticklings on social media of the actual team. I can't go into too much detail about where it's from. Just check in now. Because as ever, what I like to do on these Saturday mornings is just double check that I've not missed anything major on social media. It sounds like I think Botman's going to play. I think Burn's going to play. And it's quite interesting because the sort of murmurings of this Newcastle team that kind of seem like an ITK, if I can say that, does coincide actually with what the editorial team have chosen as their predicted 11. And the advantage that you all have here, by the way, that editorial team of Neil, Tom and Mark, 2 of them are Newcastle fans, so they've got a vested interest here. They're both very, very angry this week because somebody chopped down a tree. And so, you know, they're very focused on their work to make sure they get things right. And of course, you know, Tom Freeman, being an Aston Villa fan, is also quite useful as well. But with Newcastle especially, the view from Neil and Mark was very much that Eddie Howe wanted to rotate some players for this EFL Cup game, but perhaps maybe felt that he needed to justify rotation because it's Man City, and the best way to justify that rotation is to invent a couple of knocks here and there. That's a sort of suggested theory. I'm not saying that's necessarily what Eddie Howe's done, but I wouldn't rule it out. If I was a Premier League manager, I'd be the same. Whenever I used to play Football Manager, I would give away absolutely nothing in my press conferences. So, it could be that. The predicted lineup for this Newcastle game, which, as I said, appears to coincide with a somewhat coded predicted lineup from a supposed in the know account on social media, is Pope, Burn, Botman, Schär, Trippier, Anderson, Bruno, Guimaraes, Sean Longstaff, Gordon, Wilson, and Almiron. That is what the predicted lineup is, and I think that's probably what the team is going to be this weekend. And I probably would have expected, at the very least, Botman, Burn, and I think, Botman and Burn especially, I would have probably predicted them myself, even if it wasn't for this supposed release of information, even if it wasn't for the predicted lineup. Simply just looking at the quotes from Howe, I'm not worried. And so, as I said, I've got Botman, and I'm not possibly even going to buy Burn. For the first time ever, I may well buy a player with a yellow flag, which will be most interesting indeed. That's the situation with that. So let's move on now to the scout picks to see how some of that information has impacted what the editorial team has predicted as the best team for this particular game week. And then, there's a couple of questions. We'll get to those in a second. As I said before, I'll try my best to get to all the questions I can. If you want a guaranteed answer, if you want me to drop everything I'm doing and answer your question, Super Chat's the way to go. That's how it is. So, the Game Week 7 scout picks, it has changed a little bit since we last looked at it in midweek. If anyone caught the video where I went through the bus team, the changes, one in goal. We've got one in midfield as well. So, we've got Kaminsky in goal. It was Kabore previously, but it's now Trippier, Aguerd, and Gabriel, which is somewhat ironic when you consider we all got rid of Gabriel. A lot of us got rid of Gabriel. I agree. With the doubt around Saliba, the chance of Gabriel starting this week again go up. I think Bournemouth being without Solanke does definitely help those of you with your Arsenal defenders. Aguerd, I think, goes in largely because Sheffield United are so bad at defending set pieces and headers. They're bottom of the league for both of those two particular stats, and anyone who watched the 8-0 win saw that in action. And of course, Trippier and Gordon are the two Newcastle players within that. We've got Bowen, Salah, Son, and Bruno Fernandes. It's worth saying that Saka was in the bus team, but the bus team was picked before we were aware of this little injury. It hasn't changed despite him being pictured going to Bournemouth. I think what you have to remember with the scout picks is that it's a 1 week only team, and so there's a lot of sort of variables you have to consider, and you have to say there is still, of course, doubt around whether or not Saka's going to start. Does that mean we sell him? No, because the scout picks team doesn't have to think about transfers. So, that's very much the view there. And then Haaland and Morris, kind of the same thing. I'm not going to get Morris for my team this week. I think those of you do. I think you may get something, and I hope you do, because it's been a long time since we've had a double game week with the sort of lesser teams that actually ended up being worth it. So, yeah, that's the situation with the scout picks. So I'm going to put on the screen what is going on with my team at the moment, just so that you can see. And I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I'm going to leave it there. Then I'm going to answer some questions, and I'm going to probably do what I normally do, which is to use my answers to your questions to help me realise what I need to do with my team. So this is what my team currently looks like. I haven't made any transfers yet. It is obviously slightly tweaked from when I did my team selection video earlier in the week, because the flag on Chilwell has worsened considerably. So Flecken in goal away at Nottingham Forest. Then currently I've got Estupiñán and Cash both starting in that game. That they meet each other at Villa Park very soon. Botman in defence, then in Burmo, Maddison, Diaby, Salah and Saka as my midfield, Alvarez and Captain Haaland up front, with Turner, Archer, Anderson and Chilwell on the bench. So that is my current team. I had been hoping to roll a transfer. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that this week, to be honest. I could do it. My two options at this point in time, as I said, I thought about selling Saka. I don't think I will now. Maddison, I think, is an easy hold. Botman is an easy hold. And so it's basically what I do with Chilwell. Do I roll my transfer and start Estupiñán and Cash against each other, which I don't think is the worst thing in the world, because I don't think there's a clean sheet coming there, but I do think there's attacking returns probably for both of them. Or I sell Chilwell and buy Burn, or Chelsea defender, but I don't really think I want to trust them, if I'm being completely honest. Move Chilwell to Burn, double up on the Newcastle defence, and then bench Estupiñán and start Cash. I'm fairly happy with that idea. There might be some people who sort of wonder why I'd bench Estupiñán, but basically Brighton's defence has been worse than Villa's so far this season, and Cash has been considerably more potent in terms of attacking output, to be honest, than Estupiñán has. So it's, I want to say, easy. But at the same time, I've got so many flags in my team. And if I sell Chilwell and get Burn, I'm still going to have 4. So a first sub of Estupiñán and a second sub of Archer against the West Ham defence that actually isn't as good as many people think it is at the moment. I think that's okay. I think I'm well covered. I toyed with a hit. I don't think I'm going to take one. So it's either roll, sell Chilwell next week instead, and start Estupiñán and Cash, or it's do Chilwell to Burn and bench Estupiñán. They're my two ideas at the moment. So hopefully that helps a couple of you guys, but I'm going to jump into the chat now. So let's go with Yassine, who says Saliba or Estupiñán. That is a tough one, actually, because I've just obviously mentioned there that I wouldn't mind benching Estupiñán. I think what you do is you start Saliba, because the thing about centre-backs is, and I know that Gabriel did do this to us earlier in the season, did 1 point cameo. A lot of the time, they don't 1 point cameo you as much as as your attacking players or even your fullbacks, because it's very, very common for managers to change over a striker, bring on the secondary striker for 10 minutes just to see the game out, run the ball into the corner, perhaps bring some fresh legs on in the wing, or maybe swap an attacking midfielder for a holding player, that kind of thing. A lot of Premier League teams like to have consistency and rhythm at the back. And so, centre-backs are the least likely players, in my opinion, to come on and one-point you. And so I think with Saliba, it's a bit like Saka, but even more so. He's a 90-minute man or he's a 0-minute man. And so hopefully that's okay. Hopefully that's going to get you either 6 points or nothing, and then therefore you will get your sub coming on, which in this scenario looks as if it would be Estupiñán. And as I said, I think Estupiñán's not a bad first sub this week. I think if Estupiñán blanks, I'm not going to be disappointed, and I'm not going to be shocked. However, if he also gets an attacking return, same emotion, I won't be shocked. I think anything could happen. I can't call it either way, so let's just leave it up to the entropy of FPL bench gods, to be honest. Shafin Shoaib says, can you tell us which teams are more susceptible from set pieces? I absolutely can, and I'll tell you who they are for this particular game week. But as I always say in these videos, the best way to access that yourself is to get that Fantasy Football Scout membership. Below me is the information on some of the things you can get from that. Head to the website, fantasyfootballscout.co.uk, and sign up for a membership, and you can have a look at this kind of like every week. So what I have at the moment is I have a table up just on one of my other screens, which unfortunately I do apologise, I can't actually put on the screen just for all sorts of like complicated computer reasons right now. Of all the teams in the Premier League, last 4 matches, which teams have conceded the most headers and which teams have conceded the most chances from set plays. As I said, the advantage to having the membership means that you could change that game week range for yourself. If you feel that last 6 matches is more pertinent than last 4, you can have a look at it over that period. And then obviously, of course, next week, you'd be able to keep updating that set of data because it will shift. Sometimes teams will spend a bit of time being the worst team in the Premier League for these 2 things. And then everybody knows it because they watch their team concede all those goals. The manager comes out and every week has to face questions from all the press being like, oh, you conceded another goal from a corner. What are you going to do about it? And then sometimes they can do some things and they improve on it. And you always have to stay on top of these things. A lot of these trends will shift and change throughout the course of the season. And that's why it's useful to have that membership because you can watch that happen. But right now, I'll start with teams that are conceding chances from set pieces. So interestingly enough, the last 4 matches, because last week it was Sheffield United, but now after the last 4, it's West Ham. West Ham have conceded more chances from set plays than anybody else. Now, I'm not expecting anybody to have the Sheffield United set piece taker. But as I said, the West Ham defence is quite obliging. So if Archer has to come in as your sub, I don't actually think that's the worst thing in the world. Sheffield United are now second worst. Then it's Bournemouth. Then it's Everton. And then it's Liverpool. And so this I find really interesting for a number of things. So with Bournemouth, even more reason, I think, to start Saliba and Gabriel, because they, if you've got one of those two, because they are third worst for conceding chances from set plays, Bournemouth, in the last 4 matches, which means that we, in theory, should see some joy for the set piece takers for Arsenal and also those on the end of them. The other one that's also worthy of note is Liverpool. So Liverpool joint 4th worst for this over the last 4 matches. Only Bournemouth, Sheffield United and West Ham have conceded more chances from set plays in that time, and so not that anybody is sat here really considering selling Maddison. And if you don't already have Maddison, you're probably not that excited about signing him for a Liverpool game. But the point is that I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that little bit of information there is good news for Maddison in this game in particular, because Liverpool have been conceding a lot of chances in those scenarios. Now let's move to headed attempts then, because of course you can obviously concede those from open play as well. Worst for headed attempts is still Sheffield United. Then it's West Ham. It's kind of a similar story here. Liverpool 17, Brentford 13, Bournemouth 12. So Bournemouth still in the bottom 5 for chances conceded via the head. There's a number of little talking points to come out of that. And thanks very much for your question, Shafin. It's one of my favourite things to talk about is is where teams concede their chances from, because you can sometimes pick out some really interesting things there. You either find out that they're bad at conceding set pieces. You can also look at where teams are conceding chances in open play, whether it's from the left flank, the right flank, through the middle, all those kind of things. And it can be very, very useful for identifying some opportunities in FPL. Jim says Tarkowski or Gvardiol. Well, Everton all of a sudden are a team that people are interested in, and I'm not surprised, because actually the way that they played against Brentford was very good. Everton, of course, play Luton this week. Man City are away at Wolves. Well, Tarkowski is, of course, more likely to start than Gvardiol, just based purely on the fact that one of them plays for Man City and the other one doesn't. Do I trust Everton defence completely yet? I don't know if I necessarily do. I think that Tarkowski has the higher chance of start. I think Gvardiol has the higher chance of a clean sheet. Just double checking the predicted team for Man City for this game from the Fantasy Football Scout team news page, and they do have Gvardiol down to start at left back in this one. As I said, it's not necessarily always set in stone that this is correct. But a lot of the time there's a high degree of success rate with these. And so actually, while we're on the subject of Man City, the predicted lineup is Ederson, Gvardiol, Akanji, Diaz, Walker, Nunez, Kovacic, Alvarez, Doku, Haaland, and Foden. That is the predicted lineup there. So I think between those two, I think I probably would go Gvardiol, but I can understand why you might want to give Tarkowski a chance. But I need to see more from Everton before I start starting their players, I think. I mean, I don't even own any of them at the moment. So, yeah, that's where I would be on that one. Fosstown says Morris or Calvert-Lewin. Well, it's kind of team dependent. I think Calvert-Lewin is probably going to be a more long-term pick. Let's pick out the fixtures, actually. Let's go grab the season ticker. Another handy tool from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. Everton. They got Luton at home and then Bournemouth at home. They've got Liverpool away and West Ham away. Now, the West Ham fixture there is not the colour you want it to be, but this is what I mean about specific focuses, right? West Ham are probably going to beat a lot of teams. They may even beat Everton, but that underlying numbers is telling us that West Ham actually right now quite susceptible to set-piece chances and headers. Where does Dominic Calvert-Lewin operate best? With his noggin. So, actually, 3 of those 4 fixtures are quite nice for Calvert-Lewin. Now, let's have a look at Luton by comparison. Yes, Morris has got Everton and then Burnley. They are nice fixtures, but beyond that, I don't really think they are. Spurs at home, I don't think is a good fixture for Morris. Forest away is actually harder for attacking teams than you think. They're not as poor defensively as they used to be. Then they've got Villa, then Liverpool, then Man United. I think Morris is a very short-term option. Calvert-Lewin has slightly more value over the longer term. I think that one of them has FPL pedigree, one of them doesn't. Alternatively, Calvert-Lewin has injury pedigree, whereas Morris doesn't. So it's a tricky one. I think it's sort of team dependent. You have to, if you're going Morris, you're here for a good time, not a long time, and you need an exit plan. And if you're going with Calvert-Lewin, I think you have to give him the next 4. Even the Liverpool one, you could maybe bench him for the Liverpool game, but 3 of the next 4 for Calvert-Lewin do actually look very nice. And actually, I should just point out again, Bournemouth, another one of those teams that were in the bottom 5 for conceding chances from set plays and from headers. So that also is a very good individual matchup for Calvert-Lewin there, to be honest. Let's move on to some other questions if we can. Harsh Tatani says, is Trippier a horrible captaincy punt? My OR is 88k. I wouldn't do that this week. If you're 88k, you're in a really good place. So it might not necessarily feel that way if you're aiming for like the top 10k or something, because you're sort of 78k off that, for example. I don't know what your aspirations are for this season. Let me know in the chat if you want to. But 88k right now is a really good place to be. And so I wouldn't take any massive risks with that. Now, am I saying that Trippier is a bad option this week? No, not at all. In fact, I'm a bit frustrated with myself that I can't get to him this week anyway. I mean, I could with a hit, but I just don't want to take a hit this week. I took one last week. But, what you're saying, what people are saying when they're thinking about going away from Haaland is, I don't think Haaland is as good as this. Or what you're doing is you're betting against Haaland, and there's just a number of numbers you just have to remember with him. First off, let's start with the ownership. It feels onerous to go into it, but 92.4% ownership. Wow, just wow. I mean, that's just nuts. You are really opening yourself up into a lot of risk if you go against that. Then let's have a look at how teams have been defending so far this season. Well, let's have a look. Wolves are the fourth worst defence over the last 4 matches. Only 3 teams have allowed XG at a faster rate than them over the last 4 matches. And what you will notice, of course, is that Burnley not in this. So Wolves is a worse defence than Burnley. So Haaland, I mean, I know Trippier has the clean sheet potential, but with respect to attacking returns, Haaland has the advantage there. And then let's just look at his numbers. His numbers are just ridiculous. He is right now very much in prime do not bet against this man getting goals territory, because he's just so far off everybody else. So last 4 matches, shots in the box, whole of the Premier League, 23. Second place for that, Rashford on 13. So there is a gap of 10 shots in the box difference between him and the second most persistent penalty box shooter, which is just phenomenal. 14 big chances he's been afforded in that time, 6 more than second place Nunez, and 9 more than third place Jackson, which is, again, the gap there. Like, the gap between him and everyone else is like bigger than the gap between like second and like 252nd. Shots on target 11. You got Ferguson on 10. You've got Maddison on 9. So slightly smaller gap there, but still number 1. And so I like the boldness. I think that's the kind of thing that's going to work later on in the season. But I just think right now, consolidate your position. I think you're going to really kick yourself if you captain Trippier. It doesn't work out. Everyone else is captain Haaland, and you just get buried under a massive red arrow mountain. And then a lot of that good work you've done at the start of the season to get to 88k kind of like is almost like worthless just based off like one decision. And for me, that's way too much risk. Now that might be how you enjoy playing the game, but I think that you just have to be quite tactical about the way you climb up the ranks. So yeah. There's some decent options out there I think going to have good weeks, but I don't think we're at the stage where we can really afford to start looking beyond Haaland for the captaincy. I think that we're more likely to get into that territory around, I've put the season ticker back up on the screen, probably around game week 8, 9, 10, because you got Arsenal for City that week when Spurs play Luton. So, for example, like Son, actually quite a good captaincy option versus Haaland next week. Just purely around that fixture. Because obviously, of course, this Wolves game for Man City is really nice. And Man City do usually go through Wolves like a knife through butter. Steve B says, Gordon is a must-have. Frees up so much cash for premium assets. I really like Gordon. As I said, I was hoping I'd be able to sign him this week. I was kind of hoping that I would get confirmation that Maddison or Saka weren't going to play. I think that with... and I was looking to doing Saka to Gordon, but I think I've just seen too much of Saka in Bournemouth now to make that move, and I feel like I'm going to really kick myself because I think Gordon's going to do well this week. Barnes being out for a long time means we don't have to worry so much about rotation there. There has been sort of like murmurings around Isak and Wilson's little injuries. We talked about them earlier. And funnily enough, so there was just the possibility that maybe Wilson and Isak might both miss the game. That was sort of discussed yesterday at the press conferences. And actually Gordon was name-checked as someone who could deputise as a centre forward if that was needed. Now, we are fairly confident Wilson's going to start today. Eddie Howe doesn't like to have Wilson and or Isak playing the full 90 minutes. He quite often swaps them in and out. So if Isak's not available today and Wilson has to come off like around 70 minutes, then maybe Gordon gets 20 minutes up front as well. So that's cool. I like that. His numbers are good as well. He is got a good balance of creativity and goal threat, and the numbers back that up as well. You may have spotted him on some of those little tables there, and I'm fairly confident I've got him on one of my creativity tables. Let's stick that on the screen. Yeah, Gordon. So only Salah's created more big chances in the last 4 matches than Gordon. He does look good. The only thing that this doesn't mean don't sign him, but please be aware of this, is that he does have 4 yellow cards. So he is 1 yellow card away from a 1-match ban. In the same way that Jackson was. Off the top of my head, I don't know what Gordon got those yellow cards for, but he is a passionate young man, shall we say, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up getting a booking for sort of perhaps a rash tackle or talking back to the referee, because I mean, after all, those of you who've seen the footage will know he once had a bit of a tiz was with Eddie Howe because he substituted him, so he's not afraid to say it like it is. So like I said, I don't think that means don't sign him. I just think it means that you have to be aware of the fact that you're sort of, having to navigate the suspension tightrope with him a little bit. So it's worth just bearing that in mind with him. But certainly I'm going to have a lot of Gordon jealousy. Like an episode of Thomas the Tank Engine, I'm going to have a lot of Gordon jealousy this week when I don't own him. So yeah, that's my view on Anthony Gordon. I'm just going to get my team back on the screen because I need to sort of make some final decisions, if I'm honest. Edward Lee has just submitted a £1 super chat by the looks of it, but it didn't come with a question. So I'm just going to say, if there was a question you wanted to ask, then just stick that in a normal chat. I'm not going to make you pay for another one. Appreciate any and all support that you guys give us, so thank you very much for that. I've seen a couple of questions about ordering benches, so I might have a look there. Actually, Nissa saying thoughts on Brozier. Heard no opinions on him so far. I think we talked about him a little bit earlier this week on a couple of the videos. Yeah, there's a possibility that he could be worth something at some point. He has come back from an injury, so I'm not necessarily going to suggest going from straight away. I think the problem with Chelsea attackers, to be honest, is that I just don't know if I trust Chelsea attacking wise. I think we've got to wait and see what we get. There. John Tyner talking about, Sam is actually on Sky Sports right now. Brozier being a big risk. Palmer and Sterling could be, could be starting up front. I did see someone, sorry, the questions are coming through at a very fast rate, who looking to bench Sterling. I personally wouldn't bench Sterling this week, if I'm honest, because, I mean, I don't see why he wouldn't start, and whilst they haven't been doing all that well, Fulham is a good fixture, and they do got to win this. Let's have a check how Fulham are getting on defensively. Yeah, Fulham's still in the bottom 5 teams. That's on the screen now. Fulham have the 5th worst minutes per expected goals conceded score over the last 4 matches. So, I mean, if Chelsea don't get some goals in this game, I don't know when they will. So if you own Sterling, I think you just have to give him the opportunity to do something in this game. A few people asking about any early team news. I haven't seen any yet. As you may be aware, I'm running a stream, so it's very hard to keep an eye on everything. But that's if you see something, like, just let me know, and we'll see what we can do with it. As I said, need to have a look at my team. I need to make a final decision, so I might do a poll. I'm going to do a poll, and I can't promise that I'm going to necessarily go with what you guys say. But I'm going to give you the opportunity to help me decide between my two things. So it's either roll. What should David do? Either I'm going to roll my transfer, and then that would mean start Cash and Estu, or do I do Chilwell to burn and bench Estu. So let's see what you guys think. There we go. We got 11 minutes to come to a conclusion on that one. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say on that one. I'm hoping that neither one is going to be too damaging for my team. And I'll give you a few minutes to tell me what to do on that one. We've got a couple of questions about Neto, which I quite like. Edward Lee says, would you start Neto over Mbermo? I'm just going to call you Don. Sorry, too many consonants in that name. Start Neto or Doku. I really like Neto. This week, it's a tricky one because it's City. City's defence has been very good. So let's just have a look at some numbers. Defensively, I think I've given City too much credit. They're not actually in the best teams for defence, and you only need one chance against them to score. What I really need is creativity. So here we go. Neto. Neto doing very, very well so far this season. I think he's definitely the top scoring Wolves player. He's not doing too bad compared to just like all of the midfielders in FPL. He has 34 points. Only about 7 midfielders, something like that, have more points than him. He's pretty much the reverse of last season, where like everybody wanted to start with him and he did awful. And then this year, everybody had been put off by him, and now he's doing well. I realise actually now, I think that this question about Neto has come from Edward Lee, pay for the super chat. So there we are. We've found the question and we're answering it. But yeah, his stats are looking very good. So 12 chances created in the last 4 matches. I think that's the highest of any player, but he's had 3 big chances created, and yep, that's the second best in the league. How's he doing for goal threat? Not necessarily amongst the best players for goal threat. He's more of an assist player. He's not appearing in either of my tables for goal threat right now. But he's 5.6, I think it is. When I would really go in for Neto would be game week 8 or 9, when their fixtures get a bit nicer. They get even nicer in game week 11. That's kind of like when I've got my eye on Wolves. Edward, with your question, Neto over Mbeumo. No, I would start Mbeumo this week. I do think that on the whole, Mbeumo's attacking numbers have been better than Neto's, because there's just more goal threat and he's on penalties, and a game against Forest, much nicer fixture than the game against City. So of those two, I would start Neto over Mbeumo personally. And then I think the other one was comparison with Doku. I mean, that's even harder. I mean, I think Doku's probably likely to play this one. I think I'd go Doku over Neto. For everything I've just said there, I've talked him up big time, and now I'm saying for both questions, I think don't go for him. I just think it's a matter of timing. I think you have to go with him in a different week, really. Thank you, those of you who voted in the poll so far. We had 53 votes. It's currently 53% in favour of me making the transfer and 47% in favour of me rolling the transfer. So it's tight. So if you've got a really strong opinion, head into that poll. It's 52-48 now. Oh, wow. You guys are making sure it's very, very tight. I think I'm going to make the cut-off point 5 minutes to the deadline, so I've got enough time to go into my team and sort it before the site inevitably crashes, because people are waiting for some late news. Matthew Perry. Wow. I mean, we've got a celebrity in the chat. Hopefully you enjoyed your time on Friends. £2 super chat is your first ever one. Bench Saka or Matoma? Okay. I'm going to ask you a counter question. Let me know who else is in your attack. So like your other 3 midfielders and your 3 forwards. Because I wouldn't really want to bench either of them, I think. The Saka news, if you're joining us late, so I'll stick it back on the screen. If you're joining us late, we have had confirmation that Saka has travelled to Bournemouth. We've seen him in video footage getting off the bus and mingling with fans, which is really nice to see. And yeah, it just makes it harder for me to sell him, because I feel like if he's in the squad, he's either going to play no minutes or he's going to play a lot of minutes. That's kind of like where I'm at. And I'd rather not sell him, for example. Obviously, you're not proposing that. You're proposing a benching here. But it's you're opening yourself up to a lot of risk, I think, with this, because a lot of people own Saka. And whilst the next two, this fixture is a nice fixture. We've already had a look at the defensive numbers for Bournemouth. They're not great, so I think if he does play, he gets something. The City game's not a fun one, but there are games afterwards that, I would want to have him for. What are they? Chelsea, Sheffield United and Burnley are 3 of their 4 between game week 9 and 12. Yeah, so if I had to bench one of those two, Saka or Matoma. I mean, I guess if I was like super hard pressed and you had to choose one of those two, I can understand the case for Saka, because he is more likely to 1-point cameo than Matoma. But it's just my opinion. You know, take that as far as you want to take it, that he won't do that. Whereas Matoma, we know, is almost certainly going to start, and I think we'll get something. I think Aston Villa versus Brighton is actually going to be very, very high scoring. So, interestingly enough, hey guys, you have massively turned this poll around. 52% of you now want me to roll the transfer and start cashing the Stupinan. I mean, I would love to roll the transfer. I mean, I'll probably lose some value on Chilwell. I think, yeah, I mean, it would be nice to double up on the Newcastle defence, but in many ways, I'm now... Gabrielle says start cash or a Stupinan. Love that. Well, I can help you with that, because if I do make a transfer, my team is going to involve starting cash and benching a Stupinan, because of those two, I rate cash a little bit better. A couple of reasons why. Brighton's defence is worse than Aston Villa's so far this season. Cash is a more attacking asset than a Stupinan. So I will actually show you some of my tables that have helped me come to this decision. So into the Captain Sensible table. I've actually got the 2 players selected so we can compare them to specifically. Now, Estupiñán has touched the ball in the box slightly more than Cash. 19 touches in the box for Estupiñán, 17 for Cash. He's also more creative. 7 chances created, 2 of them big. But he has not had that much in the way of shots. 2 shots in the box, 1 big chance, 1 shot on target. Conversely, Cash has had 10 shots in the box. That's actually up there with some of the best midfielders and strikers, to be honest, and he's a defender. 2 big chances, 6 shots on target, and crucially, the expected goal involvement is much in Cash's favour. His expected goal involvement is 2.17, his Estupiñán's is 0.87, and so whilst what will happen now is I've answered this question. Estupiñán will outscore Cash today, but the thing is, you have to make a lot of these decisions on balance of probabilities, right? And because this is quite a tight one, sometimes I just let the maths do it for me. You know, this is showing that Cash is more likely to get goals. I don't think either's going to keep a clean sheet, but I think Villa have a higher chance of one. I just think that Cash, like the balance of probabilities according to these numbers, is that Cash is the one who's more likely to reward you. So if you have to choose between those two, I think Cash is the way to go. Where we at? We're actually now at 57% of you think I should just roll this transfer and start Cash and Estupiñán. A lot of you seem not interested in Burnley. I find very interesting. I like that. I mean, to be fair, I've not done this yet. I've not allowed chat to help me make a decision this season. So I'm happy to do it because I am in 2 minds, and 2 free transfers next week could be very powerful. Chilwell to if I do Chilwell to Burn, it gives me 1 million in the bank, if I then lose 0.1 on Chilwell, and it gives me 0.9, I don't really think it restricts me from getting to the people I want to get to. So, yeah, and if I'm honest, I wasn't all of that. Maka says 3 minutes ago, better do it soon, David. I wasn't all that keen on what my team looks like for next week. So, to be honest, maybe spending 1 transfer next week is actually gonna be better. Frostbolter says, do it now, David. TikTok. Frostbolter, by the way, that is such a cool superhero name. If that doesn't exist as a superhero in someone's franchise somewhere, it should do. And Frostbolter, you should make sure you trademark that soon. But speaking of doing things soon, I got to make a decision. It's 2 minutes to go. 57% of you say I should just roll the transfer. Do you know what? Let's do it. I like Estupiñán. I like Cash. I want to see goals galore in this lunchtime kickoff. So yeah, let's go for it. I'm going to roll that transfer. Right, we've got 2 minutes left. I'm going to see if I can answer as many questions as I can of yours. So let's throw them in the chat. Let's do it nice and quick. Well, let's start with Frostbolter because you've got such a good name. Bench Castle, Gvardiol of those two. I think that, Gvardiol's less likely to start than Cash. I think Cash is more likely to get attacking returns. Matthew Perry, I think it was. Oh, this is the rest of his midfield, isn't it? Sorry, right. Darwin, Alvarez, Haaland up front, Rashford, Maddison, Saka, and Burma midfield. And it was Saka or Matoma to be benched. Oh, okay. I mean, wow. What a set of players there. I mean, what I will say, in the future, if you can, try and balance that so you don't have to bench one of these guys. Of that, I can understand why you'd maybe want to bench Saka. So fingers crossed that doesn't end up burning you. But he seems like the one who's less likely to start, to be honest, and all the other ones have good fixtures. So that's what I would go with on that one. Burn or Dogi from Fosstown. I would go Burn. Newcastle's fixtures are better over the next couple of weeks. Jono says Estupiñán or Udogie. Gut says back the home fixture, even though it's versus Liverpool. That's a tough one. I think neither for this week. I mean, unless that's a kind of starting decision, then I would go Estupiñán over Udogie. If it's a sign one of them, I'd go neither. Sign them another time. Vissa replacement up front. I mean, look, if you're not happy with Vissa, I don't think there's worse options than doing Morris for 1 week and then let's find out who the longer term replacement is there. Maybe Calvert-Lewin. Chilwell to Dalot. I think Dalot might be injured. I will have to double check that though. We've got less than a minute. Rohan says, should I start Douglas Luiz? I mean, your team is probably in a difficult place if that's who you're starting. There we go. There goes the deadline. It has passed. I went with no transfer, I think. I'll have to double check it actually. Yeah, it doesn't look like I made one. And I've ordered my bench accordingly. Yeah, I'm not that upset if Archer comes through because I do think that the West Ham defence may concede against Sheffield United. So there we go. There goes the deadline. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm surprised, actually, that a lot of people didn't come in with West Ham questions. I was expecting a lot more. Dante's actually come up with one right at the end. I do apologise. I've run out of time to answer that one. So check as a differential for Ward-Prowse. Do apologise. Too late to sort of really impact your decision making for this game week for now, but I do think that Ward-Prowse is looking really, really good. He's involved in so many set pieces, and one of the reasons why he could do well this week is, of course, that Sheffield United are a little bit poor defending those set pieces. HJ says, do you think Leno outscores Areola this week? I mean, yeah, he might do. Leno, I think, will make a lot of saves. And Chelsea haven't been amazing, so I wouldn't be surprised if he does keep the clean sheet. Areola, I think, will make some saves, but I do think I think he'll concede. I think that Sheffield United will come out and they will have a point to make, a point to prove, and yeah, I think that's going to be enough for them to break down that West Ham defence, and the numbers are suggesting it's not actually as hard as you think. Now, Areola is a very, very good goalkeeper, so I don't think that Sheffield United are going to come away with loads of goals. They might get one. So yeah, I can't see a West Ham clean sheet this week, if I'm honest, based purely on what they've been doing of late. I'm sure now they'll keep a clean sheet and win like 12-0, but yeah, there we are. Thank you very much, Steve. He says good luck. Fingers crossed for a green arrow. Well, yeah, and the same to all of you guys as well. It's been a tough couple of weeks for those of us who've been kind of, joining in on scout content and just content creators in general. I'm finding that my less engaged friends and family, those who sort of log in on a Saturday morning and just sign whoever, are having a quite good season compared to a lot of us, because the so-called template, which is a word I don't like to use too much because it has a number of connotations, has had a challenging number of weeks. I've had 3 red arrows in a row, started really well, was up to 19k for game week 3, but I've dropped down to 465k after the first 6. Momentum is important, of course. 3 red arrows in a row is a bit, discouraging. But if someone had offered me 465k after the first 6 game weeks in the summer, I would have taken it. It's not a bad place to be. So if you're in around this area, then I don't think there's too much. Frostbottle says, what did your dad do with his team? I don't know. I now deliberately don't ask him about his FPL team anymore. We talk about all sorts of other things. West Ham as well, quite a lot. We're also big fans of the same television shows and all sorts of things like that. So don't worry. Communication between me and my dad is very, very regular. But I now don't ask him about his FPL team because I like it to be a surprise for me and the general whenever we have the latest episode of that. And so while we're on the subject of that, and before I let you guys go off and enjoy the rest of your day, a quick reminder of the things that you can enjoy on Fantasy Football Scout. Later tonight, the big man is back. Karam is back for the Stats of the Day series. He's had a nice little bit of time off. So those of you who last week heard about the sad story of my fish, well, unfortunately, there's no sequel to that one. Karam is back for that. So that will be at 8:30 UK time tonight. We'll have FPL winners on Sunday with Ali. And then, of course, we'll have burning questions on Monday, Scoutcast on Monday as well. The next episode of General's Orders will be on Tuesday. Actually, do you know what? It might not be. I'll need to double check my schedule on that one. All sorts of good content next week. And I'm sure we'll find out what my dad did with his team, especially. Dante says, good luck, guys. Catch you on the pods in the week. Yep, that's right. We've got loads more stuff coming up in the week. There's Champions League next week as well. So if you want to check out our Champions League content, do that as well. As ever, if you've enjoyed this video, please hit that like button so that lets us know that you've had a good time, or we can keep doing stuff like this. Hit the subscribe button as well so that you don't miss a thing, and that bell notification, of course, is going to make sure that you get those notifications every time we go live, every time we post a new video, every time we post some status update or some shorts video, things like that. You won't miss a thing, and that, of course, is going to help you with your FPL team. So with that, I shall leave you fine, folks, to enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and I shall see you next time.